3 Stoic habits to eliminate negative thinking and build mental clarity. The unseen war inside the mind. There is a kind of battle that never makes headlines. It has no loud explosions, no visible enemies, and no medals for survival. But it's the battle that silently decides the outcome of your days. You wake up and before you even open your eyes, a quiet voice has already begun. It whispers doubts. It replays old scenes. It projects new fears. You brush your teeth while revisiting a mistake. You drink your coffee already arguing with someone in your head. And when you finally sit in silence, the noise inside only gets louder. This war is not fought with weapons. It's fought with thoughts. And the most dangerous part is, you don't even notice it's happening. Because the enemy sounds like your own voice. It's not some external force coming to ruin your peace. It's the interpretation you give to the world, the stories you tell yourself about what things mean, about who you are, and about what you think is going to happen next. Negativity rarely walks in through the front door. It seeps in slowly, under the surface. A single memory misinterpreted, a small failure magnified, a doubt left unchecked. And before you realize, your mind has become a maze you can't walk out of. You feel heavy, but you can't point to the weight. You feel anxious, but nothing specific happened. You feel like your own ally is missing. That's because the war is already underway. And here's the brutal truth. No one is coming to save you from it. Not a motivational video, not a productivity system, not even a friend's advice. You save yourself when you choose to confront what's happening in your mind with clarity, not with noise. The Stoics knew this battle well. Marcus Aurelius wrote not for others, but for himself, to keep his mind clean. Seneca taught that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Epictetus warned that our judgments, not events, disturb us. These weren't just quotes, they were weapons, tools, shields. Because they understood, the mind left untrained becomes a tyrant. The true Stoic doesn't seek to eliminate every negative thought. That would be impossible. Instead, they build habits that don't allow those thoughts to take root. They notice the war early. They interrupt the pattern. They choose clarity over confusion, discipline over indulgence. And that's what this journey is about. You won't learn how to become perfect. You'll learn how to become precise. And when that precision becomes a habit, clarity is no longer a concept. It's your default state. So if your mind feels like a battlefield, it's not because you're weak. It's because you were never taught to fight in silence. But that changes now. Because once you see the battle for what it is, you'll never walk into it unarmed again. The myth of positive thinking. You've heard it all your life. Just think positive. Look on the bright side. Replace every dark thought with a bright one. Smile, even when it hurts. But has that ever worked when the storm is real? When the weight is inside your chest and not on your shoulders? The truth no one tells you is this. Blind positivity is not strength. It's denial dressed as hope. And denial is a dangerous strategy when you're trying to build a clear and powerful mind. The Stoics didn't wake up each morning trying to be cheerful. They woke up preparing for everything that could go wrong, not out of fear, but out of strength. The modern obsession with feeling good all the time has made people allergic to reality. But reality doesn't care how you feel about it. It moves forward either way. The question is, are you grounded enough to move with it? When people talk about thinking positive, what they often mean is, ignore what you don't want to deal with. That's not peace. That's escapism. The Stoic doesn't run from pain. He faces it, not with drama, not with panic, but with readiness. He prepares his mind to remain steady when comfort disappears, because he knows it will. You are not here to decorate your mind with fantasies. You are here to clean it, sharpen it, and train it to see things as they are. When you do that, clarity comes. And with clarity comes real peace, not the fragile kind that breaks with one bad comment or one unexpected moment, but the kind that stays even when things fall apart. Seneca didn't tell people to pretend life was easy. He told them to remember how quickly it could end. Epictetus didn't tell students to repeat affirmations in front of a mirror. He told them to master what they could control and release what they could not. Marcus Aurelius didn't write, "Today will be amazing." He wrote, "You will meet people who are rude, greedy, and arrogant. Be ready." Real strength isn't built by looking away. It's built by looking straight into discomfort and not flinching. The Stoic habit here is not to replace every negative thought with a sweet one, but to examine it, to hold it up to the light, to ask, is this true? Is this useful? Is this mine, or was it planted in me? You're not failing because you can't stay happy all the time. You're failing if you believe that happiness is the only goal. The Stoic goal is not constant pleasure. It's inner stability. It's mental independence. It's being untouchable, not because life is easy, but because your principles are firm. If you chase false positivity, you'll always be running from something. If you cultivate clarity, you won't need to run at all. And that's the shift. That's the habit. Not to sugarcoat your life, but to build a mind that doesn't need sugar to stay strong. Mental friction, the habit of internal resistance. Most people think that pain only comes from the outside, but the Stoics understood something deeper. The real suffering doesn't begin when something happens. It begins the moment you resist what's happening. That internal pushback, that silent refusal to accept, that tightness in the chest when life doesn't go according to your script. That's mental friction, and it's one of the most destructive forces in your mind. You tell yourself it shouldn't be this way. You fight what already is. You argue with reality, as if complaining could reverse time. But all that does is turn a single event into a cycle of misery. The mind spins, it resists, it clings. And that's how negativity breeds, not from the event itself, but from your refusal to align with what actually happened. The Stoics practiced a radical kind of acceptance, not the passive kind, not the give up and suffer kind, but the kind that says, this is real. Now what? It's called amor fati, love of fate. Not because everything is beautiful, but because everything is fuel. Even what hurts, especially what hurts. When you resist reality, you fracture your strength, your attention gets divided. Half of you is in what happened, the other half is in what you wish had happened, and neither half is here, fully present, fully useful. You lose time, you lose energy, and worst of all, you lose clarity. The Stoic habit here is simple but hard. Surrender to what is, then act from there. You don't deny the pain. You don't run from it. You meet it with still eyes. You say this happened. I didn't choose it, but I choose how I respond now. That space between event and response, that's where Stoicism lives. That's where the mind transforms. Internal resistance is like trying to walk against a wave. You waste your energy, you go nowhere. But if you pause, observe the current, and then step in with intention, you move forward with far less damage. That's what the Stoic does. He doesn't wrestle with the wind. He adjusts his sail. Negative thinking often begins with a simple phrase, "This shouldn't have happened." But it did. And now your job is not to erase it. Your job is to use it, to grow in it, to become more dangerous, more calm, more clear because of it. Acceptance is not weakness, it's the opposite. It's the kind of courage most people never develop. It takes strength to look at pain and say, you don't control me, you're here, but you don't own my next step. So next time you feel that friction, the tight jaw, the mental spinning, the silent rage against what life gave you, stop, breathe, name it. This is resistance. Then release it. Not because it's easy, but because it's powerful. Clarity doesn't come from winning every battle. It comes from choosing which ones are worth your fight. And more often than not, the battle inside is one you can end by letting go of the rope. Stillness is a decision. Most people wait for peace as if it were weather. They believe that when the storm ends, then they'll feel calm. When the noise fades, then they'll be clear. When everything settles outside, then they'll be able to think straight inside. But the Stoic doesn't wait for silence. He creates it. He doesn't hope for stillness, he decides it. Stillness is not the absence of movement around you, it's the presence of control within you. You can be in the middle of chaos and still carry a quiet center. You can be in a loud world and still walk in silence. That's not fantasy, that's training. And that training begins with a choice. The modern world conditions your mind to be reactive. Every sound, every alert, every opinion, every shift in mood from someone near you, it all pulls your attention. The more you let the world dictate the rhythm of your thoughts, the more you forget what clarity feels like. The Stoics saw this not as fate, but as failure of discipline. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire surrounded by conflict, betrayal, disease, war. He didn't wait for the world to calm down to find his center. He wrote his meditations in the heart of that storm because he understood, if you don't claim stillness as a discipline, the world will steal it from you without asking. Stillness is not something you feel, it's something you become. And becoming still means saying no to the distractions that beg for your attention. It means guarding your inner world like it matters more than anything. Because it does. A distracted mind cannot think clearly. A reactive mind cannot lead. A loud mind cannot listen to what matters. The Stoic habit here is the deliberate creation of space. Not just physical space, but mental space. A pause before you answer. A breath before you judge. A moment of silence before you flood your thoughts with noise. You choose stillness the same way you choose your next word. And with practice, it becomes instinct. People think they'll become clear by doing more. But clarity doesn't come from action alone. It comes from alignment. And you can't align anything when your mind is spinning. You need stillness to see. And to choose stillness is to say, I'm not letting the world decide my mental state anymore. The most powerful warriors are not the ones who move the fastest. They're the ones who can stand still while everyone else panics. The Stoic is not in a hurry. He's not chasing calm. He's cultivating it. And from that state, his thoughts sharpen, his focus returns, and his actions become precise. If you want clarity, don't wait for it. Create it. And if the world doesn't like your silence, that's fine. The world makes noise. You make decisions. Train the inner interpreter. Events happen. Words are said. Things unfold. But what really shapes your experience is not the event itself. It's the interpretation you give to it. The story your mind writes in the moment. That quiet voice inside that tells you what it all means. Most people let that voice run wild, as if it were truth. But the Stoic knows better. He trains that voice, because he knows. That voice can either set him free or destroy his clarity. Two people can live the same day, face the same setback, hear the same rejection, lose the same opportunity, and come out with entirely different minds. Why? Because while one reacted, the other interpreted. While one followed the emotion, the other questioned it. And that's the power the Stoic develops, the ability to control not what happens, but what it becomes in his mind. Your inner interpreter is not a reflection of reality. It's a habit, a lens, a learned filter. And if you don't take control of it, it becomes your prison. That's why Epictetus said, it's not events that disturb us, but our opinions about them. This is not just philosophy, it's instruction. You must observe the voice that speaks before you even realize you're listening. The Stoic trains his interpreter like a warrior sharpens a blade. He doesn't allow sloppy judgments. He doesn't let feelings become facts. When something happens, he pauses. He asks, what else could this mean? Am I being fair? Am I seeing this clearly or through the fog of emotion? Most people let the first thought win. The Stoic doesn't. He interrogates it. If the thought is weak, it doesn't survive. If it's unfair, it doesn't stay. And if it doesn't serve clarity, it gets removed. That's discipline. That's mental self-respect. You don't have to believe everything your mind says. You are not your first reaction. You are not your most fearful thought. You are the one who decides which thoughts are allowed to stay. And every time you let a destructive story play without challenge, you lose a piece of your peace. To train your inner interpreter, you need awareness and repetition. You need space between stimulus and story. You need to catch yourself in the act of mental distortion and choose again. This is the work. It's invisible, it's uncomfortable, but it's how you stop being a slave to perception. Over time, your mind changes, not because the world got easier, but because you stopped lying to yourself about what things mean. You became your own mental editor, and in doing so, you earned a kind of freedom most never touch. So when you feel the wave of emotion rising, don't just brace for impact. Listen to what your mind is saying, then question it. That is how you begin to see clearly. That is how the Stoic separates what happened from what the untrained mind wants it to mean. Your clarity depends on this habit, not to shut down emotion, but to train the voice that names it. And when that voice becomes calm, disciplined, and fair, you don't just think differently, you live differently. The mirror habit, brutal self-honesty. There is no clarity without confrontation, and the most important confrontation of your life is not with others, it's with yourself. Your mind can't be clear if it's full of illusions about who you are. You can't build peace if the person you lie to the most is the one you see in the mirror. That's why the Stoic commits to a habit most people avoid: brutal self-honesty. Not the kind that seeks guilt, not the kind that drags you into shame, the kind that cuts through noise and ego and fantasy and simply says, "This is who I am right now, this is what I've done, this is how I've reacted, this is what I need to change." The modern mind hides behind narratives, it blames, it justifies, it avoids looking directly at the facts. The Stoic doesn't do that. He doesn't sugarcoat his flaws, he doesn't inflate his strengths. He studies his thoughts and actions the way a surgeon studies a wound, carefully, objectively, and with one goal: healing through truth. Seneca warned about this self-deception. He called it the worst kind of blindness, because it disguises itself as comfort. But comfort without truth is a cage. It keeps you feeling warm while your clarity dies slowly. To build the mirror habit, you need silence and honesty. You need moments when the world isn't watching, but you are. You ask, did I act according to my values today? Did I speak with control or just to be heard? Did I waste my time on opinions, emotions, distractions? You don't judge, you observe. You don't attack yourself, you realign. The Stoic understands that mistakes aren't what destroy the mind. It's denial. It's pretending that your worst habits don't matter, that your weaknesses aren't costing you anything. But they are. They always do. And until you face them, you can't build anything stable inside. This habit doesn't require a journal, but it helps. It doesn't require hours, just depth. One question asked with sincerity can bring more clarity than 1,000 conversations. And the question is always the same: what am I avoiding right now? Because what you avoid builds walls inside your mind. And walls block the light. The Stoic doesn't want to feel better. He wants to see better. And he knows that truth, even when it hurts, clears the fog faster than any technique. Your ego will resist. It will offer excuses. It will beg for distraction. But every time you choose to see, you gain strength. You learn where your armor is cracked. You learn where your thoughts are weak. And with that awareness, you become dangerous to confusion. This is how mental clarity is earned, not in grand gestures, but in private moments of precision. When you look in the mirror, not to admire or to criticize, but to understand. And through that understanding, you change. So ask the hard questions. Listen to the real answers. That's not self-attack. That's self-mastery. The kind that doesn't need anyone's validation, only your own. The containment principle. The Stoic doesn't aim to destroy emotion. He aims to contain it, because he knows the first spark isn't the problem. The fire is. And if you don't control the spark, the fire will control you. That's why one of the most powerful habits you can build is the ability to contain your internal reactions before they become mental storms. Containment isn't suppression, it's redirection. It's strength under pressure. It's choosing not to explode when everything inside you is screaming to act without thought. Most people confuse reaction with expression. They think if they don't react immediately, they're being fake. But the truth is, instant reaction is not authenticity. It's lack of discipline. The Stoic lives by a higher standard. Feel everything, act on almost nothing until the mind is calm. Negative thoughts are often born in that small gap between trigger and reaction. Something bothers you, insults you, threatens your sense of control, and you immediately let the reaction define the next hour, the next conversation, the next version of yourself. But if you create space in that gap, if you pause just long enough to observe instead of obey, you break the chain. You don't feed the thought, you contain it. This containment is not coldness, It's power. It's the rep you do when no one's watching. Every time you hold your tongue when anger surges, every time you breathe instead of bite back, every time you feel the impulse and don't follow it, you're building invisible strength, and over time, that strength becomes your shield. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. That's not a quote, that's a strategy. The world throws chaos, you answer with clarity. It throws provocation, you answer with poise, but only if you've trained the muscle of containment. Otherwise, you're just another person being puppeteered by emotion. The Stoic doesn't fear feeling. He respects it, but he knows that emotions are messengers, not masters. They inform, but they don't command. And containment is what gives you the space to listen without being led blindly. Without this principle, even wisdom becomes unstable, because a wise mind with no control is a sword with no sheath. Think of containment as a form of emotional posture. Just like the body must stay balanced in conflict, the mind must stay anchored in provocation. You don't flinch. You don't collapse. You don't surrender your clarity because someone else lost theirs. This habit can be developed. Start with a breath, with a pause, with a single question. Does this thought need my energy, or does it just want it? If it doesn't move you closer to discipline, to presence, to your principles, let it pass. You don't need to engage every signal. That's how you become reactive. That's how you lose the war inside. Containment is the wall that holds back the flood, the decision that keeps the mind clean. And once it becomes your nature, negativity has nowhere to grow. The final filter. What deserves to stay in you? Everything you let enter your mind leaves a trace. A comment, a memory, a failure, a glance, a distraction. Most people walk through life as open containers, absorbing everything without selection, and they wonder why they feel heavy, scattered, unstable. The Stoic lives differently. He carries with him a final habit, the habit of filtration. He doesn't just react less, he allows less in. You can't stop the world from sending you noise, but you can train yourself to decide what stays, what gets attention, what gets silence, what gets energy. This is the final discipline of clarity, guarding your mind like a sacred space, because it is. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. That's filtration. Just because something happens doesn't mean it has to stay in you. Just because someone is cruel doesn't mean you need to carry it. Just because your day went wrong doesn't mean your mind needs to follow it home. The filter is simple. Ask, does this deserve space inside me? Does it serve the man I want to become? Does it strengthen my discipline or distract me from it? The Stoic doesn't avoid truth, but he avoids trash. He doesn't deny pain, but he doesn't decorate it either. He lets reality in, but not contamination. Your clarity is not a result of what you consume. It's a result of what you remove. And most people are not tired because life is hard. They're tired because their minds are full of things that don't belong there. Conversations that meant nothing, criticism that wasn't theirs, memories that were already buried but got dug up again for no reason. The final filter is ruthless. It protects your time, your energy, your mental stillness. It reminds you, not everything is your responsibility. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every word deserves an answer. Not every fear needs to be believed. You build this filter by practicing presence, by noticing when your mind grabs something and asking, why? Why am I carrying this? Who gave it to me? Do I want to keep it? And most of the time, when you answer honestly, you'll let it go. The mind, like the body, performs better when it's light, not from emptiness, but from intentionality, from choosing what belongs and discarding what doesn't. That's what Stoic clarity looks like. Not the absence of thoughts, the presence of only the essential ones. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, ask yourself, what have I allowed in that shouldn't be here? Then remove it, without guilt, without hesitation. Like a warrior sharpening his sword, you clean the mind to keep it ready. Because in the end, the battle for peace is not fought in grand moments. It's fought in these quiet decisions. What you let stay, what you let shape you, what you let define your inner world. You are the gatekeeper, and your mind becomes what you permit. If this message brought you closer to your center, subscribe to the channel, share it, but most of all, live it. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs you, clear, anchored, and fully awake.